Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Travel Odysseys. Thank you very much for joining us today, and feel free to join us in the live chat. Would love to see a lot of people joining us here. And
Yeah.
the theme of today's live stream is traveling with your pets. And we all love our furry ones and our little fur babies, and we want to make certain that they are healthy, that they are safe, that they are happy, and we'd love to take them with us when we travel. But there's some things to be aware of when traveling with pets, and this is especially important. This particular live stream is in honor of World Animal Day, and World Animal Day will be held on October 4th. But before we go ahead and get started, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Give this video a huge thumbs up, and in the comment section below, put in hashtag Travel Odysseys. Your support is greatly appreciated. Now, one thing I would like to point out is my wife here. She knows a great deal about animals. She loves animals, and she loves them so much that she actually wrote a book about animals.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! And the title of the book is Buried Deep in Our Hearts. Now, when this video is done, we're going to go ahead and put a link in the video description so you can go ahead and purchase the book on Amazon. And just a disclaimer, if you purchase the book, yes, she will make money off of it. So just disclaimer there. But after all, she is the author, and it'd be great if you could support her efforts here. And Tracy, can you tell us a little bit about your book?
Yeah, so Buried Deep in Our Hearts is a novel that uses a cat, a dog, and a horse storyline to celebrate our connection that we have with our animals, and then honoring their memory after we lose them. So I know this can be a very difficult topic to talk about, especially because, once we have an animal, it's kind of a strange relationship that we enter in, knowing that we'll probably see their death. So it's a hard discussion, but I wrote the book to help people with that process. There are moments of levity, there are moments of joy and happiness in the book. It's not all sad, but I just wanted to help people with that process because we personally have been through it with our kitty Kimball, and actually Kitty Kimball is one of the inspirations for the book. A lot of the animals in my life are inspiration for the book, but Kitty Kimball in particular is one. So his story is actually the cat story in here. The dog and the horse storyline are just compilations of things I've seen or experienced or heard over the years. But again, it is a novel. It's not a self-help book, but there are discussion questions in the back, and there are also resources in the back to help find ways of after you've lost an animal. So I hope you'll check it out. Again, disclaimer on Amazon, if you buy a copy, if you could get a new copy instead of a used, because the new copy actually benefits the author. The used copies only benefit the seller.
Yes. So please check it out. And the holiday seasons are coming up, so it would make a great gift either for yourself or for a loved one.
Yeah, I actually have been to events and things, and I find that a lot of people will give it as a gift, especially if they have an animal lover in their life. It's a unique gift to give someone for that.
So now we're going to begin reviewing the top 5 tips.
Yeah.
And tip number 5 here is to look for hotels ahead of time.
That's right.
That are very pet friendly.
Yes. And it's important to check out if the hotel is pet friendly or if it basically just tolerates animals. And right on cue, here's one of the residents of our household. Actually, he is, this is Monkey, also known as Oliver Monkey. Mm-hmm. But he's quite calm right now.
Yes,
but he's actually one of the 2 kings of this castle. We just pay the mortgage and the water bills. But he
starting to get squirmy
now. He's
now.
being squiggly. He actually got bye, King.
Bye, Monkey. His hair is all ruffled.
Anyway, he's
He's biting my foot.
Yeah, we love to get tooth hugs. That's what we call it, tooth hugs. That is one way that he shows his love, is by giving a little. It's not a bite per se, but because there's not as much pressure, but sometimes it feels like a bite. So depending upon how excited he gets. But again, looking ahead at a hotel, it's important to see if there's a certain area of the hotel that's for pets, or if the whole thing is pet friendly. Is it dogs and cats? Is there a weight limit, especially with dogs, or a really big cat, as to if they'll let the animal stay at that place. So it's definitely something to look ahead of time on. I have noticed, though, that more and more hotels and even some B&Bs are becoming more open with this. So check ahead to see if that's something that they allow. So that's number 5.
All right, moving on to number 4. Traveling with fur babies.
Traveling with fur babies, specifically in a car. So, and one of the things I meant to say ahead of time is that traveling can be stressful for any animal unless they really, really love the car. And some dogs in particular, and even some cats, really love the car, but some really do not. This is an extra stress for their lives, and especially for cats in particular that really, really love a routine. Now the routine is up in arms, so they might be more irritable, they might be more scared, they might be showing emotions that you might not see on a regular day. So just depending upon how they deal with their stress, something to keep in mind. Mm-hmm. So when you're traveling with dogs and cats in a car, and I'm primarily talking about within the United States, excuse me, have enough food, have enough water, and also litter for the kitties. Some people will get a smaller litter box, just like a small one, and put some litter in there. And even I heard of one woman who trained her cat to use pee pads. And pee pads, if you're not familiar with a pee pad,
it's a pee pad.
It's a pee pad. It's a place you could, or someplace it's not easily accessible to go outside all the time, you'll teach them to go there. So this woman taught her cat to use a pee pad. So she just lined this small little litter box, put it behind the seat in the car, and the cat used it. So there is some controversy whether to let the cats go free in the car. Technically, yes, they could get under the brake, they could get under the gas pedal, so it might not be the safest. But then some cats will just go ape crazy in a carrier. We hear noises from our kitties in carriers that they don't make outside of the carrier. I mean, oh, like that.
Yes.
Right on time. Good job, monkey. But much louder and much more garbled, and sounds like they're in great distress, when in reality they're just in a carrier in the car. So and quite comfortable. So oh, he's going for the curtains.
Yes.
So that's
a kitten behavior.
It's a kitten thing that has reemerged. So just something to think about ahead of time, and bring extra. It never hurts. And now there's like a little refrigerator type things you can do to keep their water cold. There's a lot of things that you can do now to make that travel time as smooth and stress-free as possible for your fur baby.
Yes.
So number 3.
Number 3. Going across state lines.
Yes. So primarily, again, this is for the United States. It's important to check what each state needs. And there are websites out there that you can check, because each state has its own thing. But some will require a CVI, a certified veterinarian inspection, and some will need sounds like a car, and then some will need a actual certified health certificate. So just to make sure, double check with what the receiving state requires you to have. I know for horses in particular, and horses I love that he's doing this. Horses in particular need to be negative on something called EIA, equine infectious anemia. And horses in particular, as I was saying before, especially if you choose to haul them yourselves, knowing what you need to do, because you need to be stopping every couple hours for any animal, but in particular with horses, to make sure that they're getting what they need there. So most of the states will require up-to-date rabies vaccines, but again, double check to make sure that that they are up to date on their shots, particularly the rabies. Some states are okay with cats and dogs. Sorry, excuse me. Cats and dogs under the age of 3 months. So again, double check to make sure that that's what your state requires.
Okay, number 2. Stop as often as you can. And of course, this applies to car travel.
Definitely.
Because if you're in an airplane, well, that's not going to happen.
It makes it a lot more difficult.
And while we explore this, I'm going to try and find our second fur baby.
Yes. So the important thing, again, as I'd said before, is stopping as much as you can to let them get out. The cool thing is that there are so many dog parks and dog run areas. At rest areas, they'll have them. Some people will even put their cats on a harness. If you've taught your cat to walk on a harness or a leash, it's something that you can walk around and they're used to doing that, then go ahead and let them get out and do their business. Again, depending upon the level of how comfortable they are. I know there's some truckers actually that will have their little cat up in the cab with them looking out the windshield. So it all depends. So here's king number 2.
Yes, did somebody say little cat?
Little cat. Here's number 2, Bubby.
Bubby.
His real name is Rutherford B. Barrett, but we call him Bubby, and he is the tech guru. But he's also a sweetheart. He has a very expressive face, as you can see. The looks he gives, and those of you that have cats, you know exactly what you're talking about. The looks he gives are particularly hilarious. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting up with this? I hate my life type of things. But you'll see with some of Travel Odyssey's previous videos, Daniel created one for cute cats with Easter peeps that have Monkey and Bubby in them. Some of his other things have Bubby in them. So he's a funny kitty. They're both sweet. He's a little more shy than the Squigglepuss that we had before, but they get along really well. And we'd love to hear from you to hear how your animals get along, especially if you have more than one. And you guys know who have animals, they have their own personalities, and they definitely train us. So they're just funny little funny little creatures. So yeah,
funny little guys.
Anything else you want to say? You're a sweetheart. You're putting up with this, aren't you? He's like, I don't have much choice for now. So
might squeal and protest here in a bit.
So stopping as often as you can is important. It's also good for you too to get out and not sit in one position for long periods of time. So I'm before we get to the number 1, I want to just maybe have this be 1B, talking a little bit about flying with your animal. So every airline is going to have their own requirements and policies. And at least in the United States, there have been some terrible, terrible, tragic experiences with this. So I can't imagine losing one of our fur babies. Due to that, he just groaned. He groans sometimes when you hit it, when you scratch his head. Yeah. So we really want to do it right. So a couple things is you're going to need to find a airline approved carrier. One of the things is that if it's a soft-sided carrier, that has to go inside. It can't go in cargo, because you can either check in one of your animals or you can do cargo. And if the animal is small enough, I would say checking in the animal would be ideal because you'd have them right there. But if they're too big, they're going to have to go into cargo. Another thing with this is that the animal needs to be at least 8 weeks old and has to be fully weaned from their mother in order to fly. Also, if you have an animal, I believe every airline requires that there's going to be an extra fee, and also they are your carry-on. So that means that you're going to have to check in maybe something that you had wanted to carry on. So just be aware of that fact. So if you fly, the health certificate has to be up to date within 30 days of your flying. So they're definitely more specific about that with flying than you are with driving. It's important to arrive early, but not too early at the airport because, again, there's lots of noises, lots of smells. We have to remember, especially with cats and dogs, they're very driven by smell, much more than we are. So lots of noises, lots of smells. And my understanding is that you're not allowed to feed an animal or a dog any earlier than 4 hours before a flight. So because they don't want the animal to get sick, basically, or have, since it is a stressful situation, probably flying is going to be even more stressful. There's a process where when you're feeling stress, it takes away the blood from your belly and it goes to other areas of your body. It's the same thing with the animals too. So that can lead to belly issues and GI issues. So the food is about 4 hours before the flight. You can give them water up until the time of the flight. And then they recommend putting dishes in the carrier, especially in cargo. So in case there's a long delay or something, they're going to be able to give them some of the food and the water. So, or at least some water. At least. So the carriers should allow the dog, especially the dog, unless it's a huge, ginormous cat in cargo, they should be able to stand and turn around and lie down comfortably, all within the carrier. So, and you can find a carrier for the smallest Chihuahua all the way to Great Danes. So they're going to need to be able to move freely within that. So just a couple things to keep in mind with the airlines, so you can avoid any potential terrible experiences. Yeah. So
all right. So the number one, the most important tip is buy my wife's book. But no, actually, it is.
If you can't travel with them, leave them at home. So finding a good pet sitter and or a good place to board. So finding a good pet sitter, oh my goodness. It's like interviewing for a babysitter. It can be very stressful because A, you're leaving your fur babies alone with them, and B, you're not there. So you have to find somebody that's really trustworthy. We really value somebody who's loving, competent, and trustworthy and reliable. So those are things that we look for in a pet sitter. And to interview them, at least around here, there are companies that hire a whole bunch of pet sitters. And then if one no longer works for them, then they'll have somebody there to fill in. If that works for you, the good thing about that is you'll always be covered. So if you don't have time to interview pet sitters or anything, there's always going to be somebody there for you. The downside, and something that we are not a fan of, is that you really create a relationship with a pet sitter. And once they're gone, you have to start over. And many companies, at least around here, will require, if you want to meet the new person, there's going to be a consultation fee for that. So we're not a huge fan of that practice, but it is something that's popular around here. The other thing you can do is hire a pet sitter that has his or her own business. I used to have my own pet sitting business, and I'm going to get back into that again, where it's a sole proprietor type of thing. So you'll know who you're getting. Anything else you want to say about that?
No, not that I can think of.
Yeah. Another example is, or another thing you can do is board your animal. Sometimes I used to work at a vet's office, and we had a cat and a dog come in a lot because their parents traveled a lot, so they were there. I mean, a couple times a month, really, and they were fine being boarded. Some animals don't do well with that. I will say most dogs are going to be required to be up to date on something called Bordetella, which is a kennel cough vaccine. So most boarding places will require your dog be up to date on Bordetella, as well as their other vaccines as well. But in addition to the other vaccines, something called Bordetella. Kennel cough can be a terrible thing for a dog to acquire. So those are just a couple things you can do. Again, with Travel Odysseys, we're about traveling, but we know that many of you have animals, and they're very, very important, valued members of the family. So just a couple tips to help you anytime you're traveling.
And try to take a moment to, on October 4th to celebrate World Animal Day. But even if you see this video after October 4th, just try to take those extra moments to cherish your pet, your fur baby, because it's so easy to take them for granted, and they're not going to be here forever. So it's very important to spend that extra time just showing them some love and care.
Exactly. And for not only for your furry friends, but your feathered friends and your hooved friends as well. Unfortunately, they just don't live as long as we wish that they could. And sometimes when we get in the day-to-day and the stresses and they're standing right under you. I mean, cats are notorious for getting right under your feet. Just taking a moment to remember they're not going to be a puppy forever. They're not going to be a kitten forever. So just to appreciate those moments is important.
And try and get on film it and take as many pictures as you can.
Yeah, because you'll forget. We look back at the kitten pictures. It's like, whoa, they're like cats now. And then especially like puppies too, especially with the big, ginormous paws, and they're all disproportionate, and then they grow into themselves.
They start off all gangly.
They are gangly, especially some of the bigger dogs. It's like someone finally like blew air into them, and they're like a balloon, and they finally get into their size. So so they're just special beings. And again, those of you with animals, you know exactly what we're talking about. They're just really, really important.
Well, thank you very much for watching this episode of Travel Odysseys. Please make certain that you subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Give the video a huge thumbs up. Celebrate World Animal Day. We hope that you benefited from these tips for traveling with your animals. And, well, always remember life is sweet for the bold, so adventure with us on Travel Odysseys. See you at the next video.
Bye.